Let's start part 3 of the chapter Weavers, Iron Smelters and Factory Owners. In the previous video we discussed about weavers and their lives and the process of preparing the textiles and different kinds of centers with different textiles. Today we are going to start the decline of Indian textiles. This topic, the decline of Indian textiles. How did the value of Indian textiles went down and what were the causes for this? First of all, let's see the sentences. Carefully, you have to listen. The development of cotton industries in Britain affected textile producers in India in several ways. The first way was Indian textiles now had to compete with British textiles, because you know that due to the technological developments and the process of industrialization in Britain, cotton textile production became very fast, due to which Indian textiles had to compete with that textile produced in Britain in European and American markets. Second reason was exporting textiles to England also became increasingly difficult, since very high duties, means high taxes, were imposed on Indian textiles imported into Britain. So two impacts were there, that due to high duties Indian textiles became very expensive, and the second thing, it was less imported into Britain. By the beginning of 19th century, English made cotton textiles successfully ousted Indian goods from their traditional markets in Africa, America and Europe. Thousands of weavers in India were now thrown out of employment because most of the things were produced by the machines, like spinning work was done by machines, weaving also. So Bengal weavers were the worst hit. English and European companies stopped buying Indian goods, and their agents no longer gave out advances to weavers to secure supplies, as it was happened earlier, that the agents used to give the advances, and loans also were provided to the weavers and to the suppliers, Indian merchants, etc. But now they stopped to do this. Distressed weavers wrote petitions to the government to help them. One example is here: we must starve for food. Company, it was there in 1823, the company government in India received a petition from 12,000 weavers stating, and here one word is used, orangs. Orangs were the warehouses, stock was there, different for collection of different products and goods. Please publish this in your paper. It was written, one widowed spinner wrote in 1828 to a Bengali newspaper, Samachar Darpan, detailing her plight. So what kind of position was there and what conditions were created by the British products. But worse was still to come. By 1830s, British cotton cloth flooded Indian markets. So you have to remember, dear students, by the 1830s, it means by the third decade of 19th century, British cotton cloth, it means the British cotton cloth means textile that was produced in British industries, came into Indian markets. In fact, by the 1880s, two-thirds of all the cotton clothes worn by Indians were made of cloth produced in Britain. It means British cloth was used in more proportion in India by the Indians themselves. This affected not only specialist weavers but also spinners, because spinners and weavers were the main parts of the textile production process, and many people were involved in these kinds of and engaged in these kinds of processes, and they got the employment. But now thousands of rural women who made a living by spinning cotton thread were rendered jobless. It means their work was left. Now they were completely jobless. They did not have work because spinning was done by the machines. Handloom weaving did not completely die in India. This is fact that handloom still it was more important. This was because some types of cloths could not be supplied by machines. These kinds of special cloths were made only by handloom weaving. How could machines produce saris with intricate borders or cloths with traditional woven patterns? It was only done with handloom weaving. These had a wide demand not only amongst the rich but also amongst the middle classes. Nor did the textile manufacturers in Britain produce the very coarse cloths used by the poor people in India. So in this way, handloom weavings it was still important, and traditional woven pattern also was important. Now we'll talk about Sholapur in Western India and Madurai in South India. These are two important places. These towns emerged as important new centers of weaving in the late 19th century. It means these became very important weaving centers where the textile was woven by the weavers and by using different kinds of other technology. Later, during the national movement, Mahatma Gandhi urged people to boycott imported textiles and use hand spun and hand woven cloth like khadi. Khadi was handmade and hand spun or hand woven cloth. Khadi became very important symbol of nationalism, and charkha also, because khadi is a textile that is produced by using charkha. Charkha for it is used for spinning, came to represent India, and it was put at the center of tricolor flag on the Indian National Congress. On the tricolor flag of Indian National Congress adopted in 1931. You know that 1931 it was the year when Congress session was held in Karachi, and then it was adopted. Many weavers became agricultural laborers. Some migrated to cities in search of work. So you have to note it down that the first thing, weavers became agricultural laborers. Many migrated to cities in search of work, and yet others went out of the country to work in plantations in Africa and South America. So weavers became laborers on agricultural fields, and they migrated to cities for work, and they worked in the plantations in Africa and South America. Some of these handloom weavers also found work in the new cotton mills that were established in Bombay, Ahmedabad, Sholapur, Nagpur, and Kanpur. These were the cities with setting up of new cotton mills. So cotton mills come up. First cotton mill came in India in 1854, and it was set up in Bombay. Now it is known as Mumbai. From the early 19th century, Bombay had grown as an important port for the export of raw cotton from India to England and China. Earlier, Surat, Hooghly, Masulipatam were important ports, but as we have discussed that from the early 19th century, Bombay, Madras and Calcutta became very important ports. So it was close to the vast black soil tract of Western India where cotton was grown. So cotton is the raw material in the cotton mills. When the cotton textile mills came up, they could get supplies of raw material with ease. So it was the reason that in Bombay, so many cotton mills were set up there. Figure 10, workers in a cotton factory, circa 1900, photographed by Raja Deen Dayal. You can see here this one. Smelting. Smelting is the process of obtaining a metal from rock by heating it to a very high temperature, or of melting objects made from metal in order to use the metal to make something new. So let's come. By 1900, 84 mills started operating in Bombay. Many of these were established by Parsi and Gujarati businessmen who had made their money through trade with China, because earlier these kinds of traders used to be involved in trade with China. For example, Dwarkanath Tagore, And one more example, Seth Hukumchand, Marwadi businessman, and one example, J.N. Tata, etc. So these people were involved in trade with China. So mills came up in other cities also. The first mill in Ahmedabad was started in 1861. After that, in 1862, Elgin mill was started in Kanpur in the United Provinces. And after that, growth of cotton mills led to a demand for labor, because in the mills or industries you need labor for work. So thousands of poor peasants, artisans, agricultural laborers moved to the cities to work in the mills, and they became laborers. So in this way, one more important impact of setting up of mills in cities, that more and more people started to work in these mills and industries as laborers. In the first few decades of its existence, the textile factory industry in India faced many problems. What problems were there in front of textile factories in India? It found too difficult to compete with the cheap textile imported from Britain. The first problem was that it had to compete with the cloth or textile that used to come from Britain. And in most countries, government supported industrialization, but imposing heavy duties on imports, this eliminated competition and protected infant industries. The colonial government in India usually refused such protection to local industries. You know that in Britain, the local producers were protected from Indian textile, good quality of Indian textile, by imposing the duties on Indian textile. But it could not be happened in India. Why? Because in India the government was of British. So why they were supposed to protect Indian textile mills, right? So the first major spot in the development of cotton factory production in India, therefore, was during the First World War, when textile imports from Britain declined and Indian factories were called upon to produce cloth for military supplies. So you have to remember that during 1914 to 1918, during the First World War, Indian textile mills and other industries improved their conditions, and means they increased their production, and they got very big profit because the British industries were involved in the war supplies. Now, the sword of Tipu Sultan and wood steel. Now, we are going to start the discussion about the metal industries, especially iron and steel industry, with the example of a sword of Tipu Sultan. This sword was very special. Why? Because it was made up of special metal. Tipu Sultan was the ruler of Mysore, killed in 1799 in the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War in Seringapatam. You might have heard about Tipu Sultan and you have studied in history. Tipu's legendary swords are now part of valuable collections in museum in England. But do you know why the sword was so special? The sword had an incredible hard and sharp edge that could easily rip and through the opponent's armor. This quality of the sword came from a special type of high carbon steel called woods, right? So wood steel, when made into swords, produced a very sharp edge with a flowing water pattern. This pattern came from very small carbon crystals embedded in the iron. So it was the special process for making special metal. Francis Buchanan, who toured through Mysore in 1800, only after 1 year, Tipu Sultan's death, he has left us an account of the technique by which wood steel was produced in many hundreds of smelting furnaces in Mysore. It means in Mysore, smelting furnaces were there, and in which wood steel used to be produced. In these furnaces, iron was mixed with charcoal and put inside small clay pots. Through an intricate control of temperatures, the smelters produced steel ingots that were used for sword making, not just in India but in West and Central Asia too. So this metal was exported also. So woods is an anglicized version of Kannada word ukku. Hukku is the Kannada word. In Telugu, it is known as hukku, and in Tamil and Malayalam, it is known as urukku. Its mean steel, right? Its meaning is steel. So it was special steel, wood steel. Indian wood steel fascinated European scientist Michael Faraday. You have to remember the name Michael Faraday, the legendary scientist and discoverer of electricity and electromagnetism. Spent 4 years studying the properties of Indian woods, 1818 to 1822. He studied about the properties of Indian woods. So, what was the special thing in this kind of metal? However, the wood steel making process, which was so widely known in South India, was completely lost by the mid 19th century. That was very special before that particular period in 18th century and in the beginning of the 19th century also. So, can you guess why this was so? The swords and armor making industry died with the conquest of India by the British, and imports of iron and steel from England displaced the iron and steel produced by people or craftsperson in India. Why this happened? The reason was only industries. Because of modern mechanical industries, because of the technological developments and the new inventions of machines, this kind of work and functions were lost in India, right? So about this topic we'll study in the next video with abandoned furnaces in villages.